Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I'm going to read a real short article here and give you some of my thoughts after it. So if any of you are asking yourselves, this is the Alaska Prepper channel. Why does Alaska Prepper concentrate so much on finances and the economy? Well, I personally believe that one of our first major crises will be a financial crisis. Okay, yes, there's a whole bunch of other things that we can prep for that can happen, natural events, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, things like that. I don't really want to say war, but that as well. But I feel that before any of that happens, or pandemic, things like that. But I feel that before any of that happens, I think we have a greater chance of having a financial crisis. That our chances of having a financial crisis is more likely than anything else right now. So that's why I go over the economy and finances and things like that, at a more frequent rate than I do other things. So I just wanted to read this quick article for you and see what you guys think about it. So please feel free to leave your comments. And the title of the article is "A Worldwide Debt Default is a Real Possibility." And it says here, debt is future spending pulled forward in time. That's why when you hear people say that we're spending our children's future, that's what we mean. Is because the U.S. is currently $20+ trillion in debt, and that's just the public debt. Okay, that's not the unfunded liabilities like pensions, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. All right, it lets you. Okay, so let's carry on. It lets you buy something now for which you otherwise don't have cash yet. Whether it's wise or not depends on what you buy. Debt to educate yourself so you can get a better job may be a good idea. May be a good idea. All right? Borrowing money to finance your vacation, probably not. The problem is that many businesses and governments borrow money or borrow because they can. It's been possible in the last decade only because central banks made it so cheap. What they mean, and I'm talking as a layman here, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So most of you probably, understand exactly what is meant when they say central banks have made it so cheap. But if I interject and I, reflect on something a little bit more, it's just to make sure that everyone understands, okay? So when they mean that central banks made it so cheap, is that central banks lowered the interest rate so low that it was cheaper to borrow money at a lower interest rate than it is getting now. So as you all know, if you've been following the FOMC, all right, the Federal Reserves, they've increased interest rates, I think 3 times this year so far. All right, so they've increased them by like 75 basis points this year. I think they're shooting for another increase in December. And I think so far in the last couple of years, they've increased interest rates by about 2%. Right, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but go ahead and grab yourselves a mortgage calculator and just put in a number. Let's say put in like a couple $100,000 mortgage for 30 years at 3%, and then go ahead and raise that to 5% and see what the difference is. It makes a big difference. It was rational in that respect, but is growing less so as central banks start to tighten. And that's what they mean by tightening. The opposite of making loans cheap is to tighten, is to heighten the interest rates. So the Federal Reserve is tightening in 2 ways. They're increasing the interest rates, okay, and they're also getting rid of their bonds, all right, or their securities that they've purchased. So as we discussed in a video that I did few days ago, I think it was, that the Federal Reserve holds a couple $1 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities, all right? So they're starting to sell that off at a rate of about $50 billion per month. Now, them selling that off is tightening the market as well, because it is taking liquidity out of the market, all right? Before, when they were buying those mortgage-backed securities, they were loosening because they were injecting liquidity into the market by buying that stuff, by buying those junk bonds or those junk mortgage-backed securities, okay? Earlier this year, I wrote a series of articles predicting a debt train wreck and eventual liquidation. I dubbed it the Great Reset. I estimated we have another year or two before the crisis becomes evident. Now I'm having second thoughts. Recent events tell me the reckoning could be closer than I thought just a few months ago. Debt doesn't fuel growth anymore. Central banks enable debt because they think it will generate economic growth. Sometimes it does. The problem is they create debt with little regard on how to use it, on how it will be used. That's how we get artificial booms and subsequent busts. We are told not to worry about absolute debt levels so long as the economy is growing in line with them. That makes sense. A country with a larger GDP can carry more debt, but that is increasingly not what is happening. Let me give you 2 data points. Hoisington Investment Management's Lacey Hunt tracks data that shows debt is losing its ability to stimulate growth. In 2017, $1 of non-financial debt generated 40 cents of GDP in the U.S. It's even less elsewhere. This is down from more than $4 of growth for each dollar of debt 50 years ago. So what they're saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that in 2017, for every $1 that the government borrowed, only 40 cents was added to our gross domestic product. So that means that for every $1 that the government borrowed, oops, sorry about the heater, ladies and gentlemen. For every $1 that the government borrowed, we pretty much lost 60 cents for that dollar. It was pretty much wasted, all right, because it didn't add to any of our gross domestic product. So that's, for example, let's say if you own a business, okay? Let's say if you own a business and you're going to spend $1, all right? Let me put it in a simpler way. Let's say you own a business and you're going to hire someone to work for you. Let's say that hiring that person, you're going to pay them $50,000 a year, okay? But your analyst or your statistician or whoever it is that does your payroll, or whoever your accountant tells you, well, it's going to cost you $50,000 to hire this person, and let's say that $50,000 includes all the benefits that they get, okay? Health insurance, vacation, everything, okay? To keep it real simple. What if your accountant tells you hiring that person for $50,000 a year, that person is only going to generate $40,000 of revenue for your company? So you're spending $50,000 to generate $40,000 of revenue. Is it a smart idea to spend that $50,000 hiring that person when they're only going to add $40,000 worth of value to your company? So you're spending more hiring that person than what that person is going to make for your company. So it's not a good idea. Same thing here. They're spending $1 to make 40 cents. All right, that's where that's getting at. Okay, and then carrying on, it's even less elsewhere. This is down from more than $4 of growth for each dollar of debt 50 years ago. This has seriously worsened over the last decade. China's debt productivity dropped 42.9% between 2007 and 17. That was the worst among major economies, but others lost ground. Too. All the developed world is pushing on the same string and hoping for results. So here they're saying that China, between 2007 and 17, they're spending $1 and only getting 57 cents added to their GDP. All right, so that's pretty bad. Okay. Now, if you are used to using debt to stimulate growth and debt losses its capacity to do so, what happens next? You guessed it, the brilliant powers that be add even more debt. So that's the definition of insanity, is to keep doing the same thing over and over again until it works. I remember, I forgot where I heard this somewhere, but they said that America will do the right thing after it's done all of the wrong things. So eventually we will do the right thing after we've exhausted all of the wrong measures. Okay. And here it says how much debt we actually have. This is a classic addiction behavior. If you have to keep raising the dose to get the same high. But centuries of history show that every prior debt run-up eventually took its toll on the economy. There is always a day of reckoning. The U.S. economy is so huge and powerful that our current $24.5 trillion government debt, including state and local, could easily grow to $40 trillion before we meet that day. We are one recession away from having a $30 trillion U.S. government debt total. It will happen seemingly overnight, and deficits will stay well above $1 trillion year over year, and every year after that, not unlike now. Even though a budget deficit is under $800 billion this year, we added over $1 trillion of actual debt. That is due to off-budget items that Congress thinks should be part of the normal budgetary process. It includes things like Social Security and Medicare. They vary from time to time and year to year and can be anywhere from $200 billion to almost $500 billion. And here's the point that you need to understand. The U.S. Treasury borrows those dollars and it goes on the total debt taxpayers owe. The true deficit that adds to the debt is actually much higher than the number you see on the news. Household and corporate debt is growing fast too, and not just in the U.S. Here's a note from Economic Research Institute's Laksham Akuthan. Notably, the combined debt of the U.S., Eurozone, Japan, and China has increased more than 10 times as much as their GDP combined over the past year. And then he says here, yes, you read that right. In the last year, the world's largest economies are generating debt 10 times faster than economic growth. Adding debt at that pace, if it continues, will boost the debt to GDP ratio at an alarming rate. And then he continues and says, remarkably, then the global economy, slowing in sync despite soaring debts, finds itself in a situation reminiscent of the Red Queen effect we referenced 15 years ago, when tax cuts boosted the U.S. budget deficit much more than GDP. As the Red Queen says to Alice in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, now here you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. Wow. Okay, so this is almost over, ladies and gentlemen. This won't end well. I am trying to imagine a scenario where this ends in something less than chaos and crisis. The best I can conceive is a decade-long and possibly more stagnation while the debt gets liquidated. Wow. And for those of you that don't know what stagnation means, this is how I see stagnation, what I think it means. I'm sure it's not the dictionary definition, but stagnation is when you have like high unemployment, okay, low wages, all right, and high prices. So it's like a trifecta effect of a really bad economy, because you have really high unemployment, really low wages, and then you have really high prices for consumer goods, or pretty much for everything. But realistically, that won't happen because debtors won't let it, and they outnumber lenders. for this reason, something like the Great Reset will happen first. And then it says the rationale course would be to delay the inevitable as long as possible. Yet in the US we are rushing it. Yeah, and we definitely are rushing it. So that's the article, ladies and gentlemen. Not done yet. I got something to show you real quick, and I just got a quick thought for you. So this is what I think, or this is what I do. I'm not there quite yet, but this is what I think is the right way to go as far as protecting yourself against what's coming in the financial world as far as money. So, and this is not financial advice, okay? This is just what I really think. This is what I wholeheartedly think is the right move to make, right? Unless you want to become extremely wealthy in the next paradigm. Me, myself, I've never really been a money person, whereas I think that money is everything. I just need enough money to, you know, look out for my family's interests, right? So I think that whatever amount of debt you have, so let's say, for example, you take your mortgage, if you have a car note, whatever you have, if you don't have any debt, that is outstanding, and congratulations, okay? I am working toward that goal, and I'm hoping to reach it here within the next year or two, which would be a great thing, all right? But if you have debt, I think that the best way to protect yourself is, this is not financial advice, all right? I think that the best way to protect yourself is to have at least 10% of the debt that you hold. So for example, let's say I have a mortgage, I have a car note, I have credit card debt, I have student loan, whatever it is that I have. Let's say I have $200,000 worth of debt. I think that the best way that I would be able to protect myself against some kind of a economic crisis that is more likely coming is to have at least 10% of my outstanding debt in precious metals. All right. So for example, let's say I have a $200,000 mortgage and I still owe $200,000 on my house. I would want to have at least $20,000 worth of precious metals set to the side. And why do I say 10%? The reason I say 10% is because if you go back, historically, if you go back, you'll see that during financial crises, like hyperinflation, where, you know, a country just loses control of its monetary policy and they just can't hold on, you know, like we're doing now, we're just holding on. The price of precious metals usually goes up a lot. The best example we have of that is Venezuela, and then before Venezuela, I believe it was Zimbabwe, okay, that the price of precious metals really went up a lot, and usually they go up at least tenfold, if not more. In Venezuela's price, the price of in Venezuela's case, the price of gold, I think, went up by like I don't know, 1 million or so, roughly 1 million times. You know, it went up because I think the price of gold there was like 5,000 and something bolivars, and the last time I checked, it was like 3 million bolivars, something like that. So it didn't go up 1,000 times. It went up like 26,000 times or something like that, 30,000 times. Anyways, you get what I'm coming at, because if you have outstanding debt, especially if you have a mortgage, you want to be able to, if something like this happens, you want to be able to pay that off, because if paper becomes worthless, you actually have a good opportunity to exchange some of your precious metals for some of that worthless fiat, but you're going to get a much greater amount and be able to pay off your mortgage with that worthless fiat, because that's the contract that you made with the mortgage company, that you were going to pay this much off, right? So whether the fiat is worthless or not, you're paying them in dollars because that's what you borrowed, right? So that's how I look at it, okay? Is that I'm trying to get at least 10% of what I owe in precious metals. And if you don't owe much money, then, or if you don't owe anyone any money at all, then I would have at least 20% of of what I was worth. So if I'm debt free and I have $100,000 in the bank, I would like to have at least $20,000 of that $100,000 converted over to precious metals. Okay, so that it can protect your purchasing power later on. All right, so that's how I see that. And I wanted to show you something real quick, ladies and gentlemen. So I dug up an old, quick 1.5 minute video from Hurricane Sandy, and I want you to take a look at this. And I really hope that you've stuck with me till now, because I think this video says it all. Okay, this here is why you have to prep. This is the perfect example of why you have to prep, okay? Let me see if I can turn this up a little so you guys can hear it well. This is a woman during Hurricane Sandy walking up to a senator from New York.
When is the government coming? They're sending their mobile units tonight, right? With gas? We need gasoline. With gasoline, you're going to bring food and gasoline and clothes? There'll be food distribution right down on Father Capitano. They're putting it in place now, but this afternoon we'll be there. There'll be food and gasoline to run generators. Yes. Bring us generators. Bring us something to get heat. We're going to die if we get killed with the weather. We're going to die. We're going to freeze. We got 90-year-old people. We'll have the food this afternoon, right on boat. Please, the president there. We have no cars. Don't you see? We need please, President Obama, please listen to us down here. We are going to die. You don't understand. You got to get your trucks here on this corner now. We are trying to get 3 days to come tonight to build a place and bring clothes. Right. This is all the clothes we have. This is all the clothes we have. And the gasoline, they closed. The Coast Guard's closed the harbor. I think they're going to open it this afternoon, so the gasoline will be allowed to come in. I know there's a shortage because of all the generators. So we are here to come and try and break through the red tape and get the stuff you need: food, water, gasoline.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. This is such a sad video. Do you really think that this person here cares? This is a government representative. This is a senator, right? Do you really think that he cares about these people?
Then after that, we need to get down here. This is the city of New York. This is solely. This solely. I live alone. Okay.
Okay, that's enough on that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that was a wake-up call, okay? That every time I watch that video, that really bothers me, because these people that are not awake, it's not their fault. It really is not their fault, okay? Some people you can say, yes, it's their fault. Because if you have that friend that you've been telling for years, listen, you need to prep, you need to prep, you need to prep, and they were like, no, 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 that is their fault, right? But most people, it's not their fault that they are going to be in the predicament that they find themselves in when the day comes. So that video really, really bothers me. But I hope it serves as a wake-up call to all of you. And those of you that are listening to this, if you're not prepping, I hope that you change your mind, and I hope that you wake up to the fact that the government is not coming to help you, especially if we have a systemic crisis. This was just, Hurricane Sandy was just in one part of the country. Imagine if we have a systemic crisis that affects the entire country or the entire world. Just imagine, because it can happen. It's happened before. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I got to get ready for work. All right, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, and please share this video with someone that you love. Okay, try to wake them up. Try to get them to start prepping. Okay, it's important. All right, having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.